Hi, I want to add a few additional comments to some of the readings you did on the Catechism this week, particularly with regard to Heidelberg Catechism Question and Answer 80, the one dealing with the Lord's Supper and the Roman Catholic Mass. The language in that question and answer is quite harsh, and we have bracketed some of it in the Christian Reformed Church now. Not removed it, but put a bracket around it to say, we need to rethink this a little bit. That rethinking was done in what we call the Reformed Catholic Dialogues, of which two of our faculty here at Calvin have been a part. So with that in mind, I just want to add a few things to what you read. First, I want to point out that the problem that was being addressed in Heidelberg Catechism Question and Answer 80, although at the time they were worried about doctrine and it seems doctrinal, what they were really addressing ended up being more practice. What our dialogue people found out was that most of the doctrine behind the practice of the Mass has not changed since the mid-7th century or something, right up through to today. So it wasn't the doctrine per se that was the problem. It was the way they were practicing it at the time. The people didn't understand Latin. It was being said in Latin. So they were simply watching what the priest was doing, and frequently what he was doing was exaggerated motions and mumbling that made it look completely incomprehensible to the people, and in fact ended up turning the whole celebration into something of a circus. That, then, is what the Reformers were reacting to. The problems with the Lord's Supper, however, didn't end with the Reformation. There was considerable debate within the Reformation itself about how to handle the issue of the presence of Christ in the supper. Perhaps when you read John 6 today, you saw that there seems to be in Christ's own language a sense that you are in fact eating his body and blood when you eat the supper. And that comes forth also in his language of institution. This is my body, this is my blood. Now we don't take that as wholly symbolic. We want to say that there's something going on there, and the Reformers did too, with one exception. There were three basic camps in the Reformation. The first camp I'm just going to identify was Zwingli, and it's not entirely fair, but for lack of time, I'm just going to say Zwingli. The Zwinglian understanding doesn't really affirm a presence of Christ in the supper, but rather speaks of it more in terms of a memorial supper, a time to remember what Christ has done and point forward to the future. The second camp was the Lutheran camp. The Lutherans did, in fact, affirm a presence of Christ in the supper, and in fact a real physical presence. But rather than having that presence come through transubstantiation like the Roman Catholics, what they had was this idea of the omnipresence of Christ's physical body. So Christ was physically present in, under, through, and beneath the elements, thus consubstantiation. The Reformed, people like John Calvin, also affirmed that there was a necessity for having some sort of real presence of Christ in the supper. And so Calvin talked about Christ being truly present spiritually, or a real spiritual presence. So Christ is really present in the supper, really nourishing us, his spirit nourishing our spirit through the elements. So the Catechism and the Belgic Confession, in fact, talk about insofar as bread and wine nourish our physical body, the Spirit of Christ nourishes our spirit and strengthens us for living into our confession. It's very nuanced, the whole argument. Trying to understand it completely is beyond the scope of this little video. I do want to say, though, that the Christian Reformed Church has put out this little booklet. See if I get it right there. It's the Lord's Supper and the Roman Catholic Mass. It has the full discussion of this committee from our church and the Roman Catholics as to how to understand what's going on and whether our language in Question and Answer 80 is actually accurate of what the Roman Catholic Church teaches teaches, again, not practice, teaches. And Lyle Bierma's explanation, I think, there is helpful. So, thank you.